Hey everyone, welcome back. Another dirt video here. Nice little shoes. Kind of showing, like, can just kind of walk on some gym shoes. It's not very muddy back here, but what I want to do is kind of show you guys what's going on here. I'm going to try and not show too much of the street again. Like I said, I'm going to try and keep it as private as possible for everybody, but you can see up to the street kind of where their excavator is there. But all that's cleared out now by the driveway. So all this right there is cleared out. That's where the driveway is going to come in, right here where these tire tracks are. And then I'm gonna zoom out here and turn around and kind of show, I'm standing on the top of this nub here, and house is gonna sit somewhere in here. So just kind of, oh, almost tripped and fell. Got this pipe down here. I'm gonna need to extend that out too. But yeah, coming up here, all this being cleared out. So all of this is gonna get built up probably about 6 feet. I did some elevation shots yesterday. Basically what that looks like is setting up a laser on this high side over here and shooting different points. I shot all 4 projected corners of the house. I shot top of this nub here. I shot about where I'm standing, which is quite a bit lower. And then I shot up here at the street, and also shot somewhere along the line here, so I can kind of get an idea of where my slope is going to be. What's cool about this is we're probably going to extend this pipe and build all this up about 6 feet. Very concerned about the slope of this driveway. Thought it was going to be close to 15 to 18%, maybe 20% at the very, very worst case scenario. But turning around, that's about what it's at now, actually. It's very steep. But being able to build this up and cut some of this down up here by the street, we actually should be able to get around a 10 to 12% grade on our driveway, which isn't too bad. Actually, it's pretty nice. This all got kind of cleared out up to this creek. We're going to clean this up a little bit more, probably get some riprap in that. Kind of depends on how much money I got left. So budget is definitely a factor in some of those little dolling up details. This kind of cleared. I'm not going to show my neighbor's house, but this kind of got cleared out a lot. I might put a fence there. Privacy fence kind of stretching from this back of this fence all the way forward along this property line here and up to the street. Not sure about that. Again, that's going to be a budget oriented thing, kind of trying to make sure the house is done first before we kind of get into anything else. So kind of having some elevation. The property line, there's a stake back there. I am getting this resurveyed. Definitely very important whenever you're doing work like this to get the property surveyed. I do know I have some stakes, and pulling off of those stakes, I know what my frontage is, 185 feet, which really is quite a good little frontage. It's not very little. And I know my dimensions front to back on this side, and then how it cuts back behind his house. I pulled all that out and everything like that, and I was able to scale this all out on a piece of paper. And I can kind of show you guys that too, where I was able to kind of roughly estimate where my laser was, where my property line was, and then the different points that I was taking from the different areas. And really worked out nicely to be able to really get a good design on a piece of paper, kind of like a site plan. It's a rough site plan because when I get it surveyed, they're going to draw out the plot plan. And that's going to be better. I don't know if you can see this over here, but there's an orange stake right there. You guys can't really see it, but that's what I believe is from what it was before. So here we got this privacy fence. Again, I have my back offset pretty much off the house. I think I'm going to have about 70 feet from the back of the house to the back of the property line, and I don't know exactly where that's at. I think it's pretty close to the fence based off of the GIS map that we have. And then off of the sides, I'm about 75 feet off of this property line, which is somewhere in here. And then I'm about 70 feet off of this property line that my neighbor's house here kind of runs parallel with him. I'm about 70 to 75 feet. I'm actually pretty centered in the lot, which will work out really nicely with this view up the hill. And now that this is all cleared out, we're actually, when we drive down the driveway, we should be able to see the front of the house pretty good. Side entry garage here. So where I'm standing here is going to be probably about 6 feet lower. I got a couple concerns just so you guys can understand when you're going into a rough lot what it kind of looks like, because this is a rough lot. You know, it's not like you're going into a subdivision where all the lots are prepped and they're flat and you don't really have to do a lot of clearing. There's some other things to be concerned about with this. One of them's dirt. Now, we took out some trees. One of the things that you want to look for is the size of the trees. So you know, ash trees grow pretty quickly, so you definitely don't want to go just based off of those. But, you know, up here and a lot of the trees that we took down, you can see kind of, and I'll zoom in because I'm not going to walk back there, but those trees over there, they're pretty big. And so that probably tells us that they've been here a long time, which for the ground is what I'm getting to. You want to be on native ground. Trees are a good way of dictating kind of how long the ground's been undisturbed. Another thing is when they put this pipe in and they did all this work, there is a actual engineer drawing. Some neighbors' kids are yelling, sorry. There's an engineer drawing of where the fill line was. So I'm able to kind of pull back. Now those, you know, the engineer drawing is what's proposed. That doesn't mean that's always what happens. So you gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. But coming down here, if I squat down, you can really see the elevation difference. So I'm about level with the ground, and you can see how much higher this is. One of the concerns you have with this, with the uneven ground, is trying to jack the house up, which basically not jack the house up, but set the house foundation wall to a certain level, okay? You have to do the math backwards, your 9-foot walls, and you count for maybe a foot for your footer, and then trying to work that backwards for where the top of your grade's going to be here, top of the grade's going to be here, because this is going to be a walkout. So with that, I got to determine how my footer is going to work back here with a 2-foot wall. If I have to drop that down, still trying to figure that out. I'm actually probably going to ask the guy that I work for, if he, you know, he's got experience building a lot more houses than I have. I'm pretty young, only been doing it a few years, but trying to learn as much as I can. And obviously this process is building my own house is really working a lot, but grade's going to kind of come flat and then kind of taper off here. And I think we're in a pretty good spot to do that. My biggest problem and biggest concern, and really any house, if anybody is building a house watching this, the biggest concern is really the elevation of the house. Now, a lot of times that's going to be dictated by the sewer. You want to make sure you are above the sewer tap, so you have fall to the sewer. If you're below the sewer tap, you end up having to pump the basement in what's called a high wall system. We are doing that on one of the houses we're building for my job, and we're doing that because we sunk the house down to get the customer we're building for a bigger backyard. So that was one of the things that we were able to do, but we knew we were doing that. If you're just building a house like this and not knowing, hey, you know, I'm going to sink my house down, I'm just going to set it, do whatever, and you're below the sewer, well, that's a bad day. And it becomes pretty expensive to fix that. Here, different situation, because street's all the way up the hill. So that actually is going to leave us with a grinder pump, which is going to be somewhere here. It's on the low side. If there's ever any issues, it's on the low side. We don't want it on the high side. So yeah, you want to make sure that the house is going to definitely be above the sewer. For me, it doesn't really matter that much, but what it does matter is how far I need to dig down. You see, I got to dip in here, and that gets a little bit tricky if I have to dig down and pour what's called a trench footer, which is a low strength concrete, but I'll get into that later once we kind of get a little bit more into this. We're going to dig some test pits here, and those test pits are going to tell us how deep we have to go to be on pretty good clay. Clay's pretty good. Again, if anybody's looking to build, and I'm not a geotech by any means, but I've been around it a little bit and enough, making sure that the clay isn't fatty, which basically means that it expands and contracts depending on the moisture level, and it's to the point where it expands more than typical, and you can have some problems with your footer in those situations. But yeah, this is crazy now that it's all cleared out and up to here, and you can really see basically from the street all the way down. You weren't able to do that before. The guy who had this before me cleared out a bunch by the street, and so I didn't have to really do that. And there's actually a big pile of it right here is what he cleared out. He cleared all that out from up here where the street was, because that's where he was going to put his house. So now this is all cleared out. I can actually really start working on and pulling out where my house is going to be, setting some stakes. And the good news is I think we got a lot of dirt here, because all of this is all going to get filled up about, you can kind of see the grade line here of my neighbors right there. And so it's going to get filled up to about there, maybe even a little bit higher. But yeah, so that's kind of the update here now that we've had about 3 days. It took about 3 days to clear this out. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll leave it there. Next update, I'm probably want to do a little bit of updating on the paper, on like a, you know, paper plan of kind of what that looks like. The next update, that's it for now on this update. It's been about 3 days of work to get it to this point. So we're in a good spot. Next update, what I'd like to do is kind of go through some things on the paper and show you guys kind of the lot and how I take elevations and how I'm kind of trying to design it. Now, kind of my first time really doing this all by myself. I have a little bit of counsel with my boss, you know, whenever I have questions, but really excited to take everyone on the journey with me. This is a super exciting stage of my life. It's my first house, building it by myself, and it's insane. So thanks for watching. Bye.